All right, good morning on the live stream. We're kicking the live stream off here about a minute early just to make sure everything is working. It looks as though everything is working right now. So we will go live here in just about 45 seconds on the app, so stay tuned.
Your money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Monday, April 15th. It's tax day. It's my wedding anniversary. We had to make it a happy day. We sent our check to the government. They won't get my tax return till almost the end of the year, but they get the money. So if you have any questions, we could certainly answer tax questions today. It is going to be a free-for-all. Phone lines are open. Hit that call now button on your app, or if you want to dial, you can call in at 855-950-3835. We are live streaming. Oh, let's see. It looks like we might be back on YouTube. Not sure yet. Should be on Facebook. Should be on LinkedIn. We should be on X. And I think today we might also be on Instagram. We are adding to our live streams. It is a free-for-all today. Jump in and join us. Those phone lines are open right now. Let me check. Nope, no calls coming in yet. Give you a quick update. I am settling into my summer schedule, and I am looking forward to it. I just got back from Phoenix yesterday. Had a great time down at the TIA. I'll give you an update on what's going on with that. So my summer schedule is pretty busy. Live shows every day, coaching calls every Thursday, CMC webinar every other Tuesday. And no real travel coming up for the rest of the year. Probably book some stuff late fall into the winter later on. But right now, I've had enough traveling. I've had enough airplanes. I've had enough spending time in hotels and eating every meal out. I am looking forward to staying busy here in the studio and getting busy out in two gardens this year. So phones are starting to come in. We'll get to those calls here in just a minute. So one of the things I was really looking forward to at the TIA is that I haven't been there since pre-COVID. I was trying to remember the last time I spoke there. I thought it was 17 or 18. I may have done a breakout that year. And I was talking to somebody, and they said they remembered when I did the keynote there, which I had forgotten. But that was back in 2013. Interesting shift in the dynamics in the industry that I noticed at TIA. It's not a bad thing. It's just I may have to adapt to it. I've been in the industry a long time. I've been going to these events for a long time, and they were trucking events. And what I mean by that is the people that were there had vast majority of the people had a very strong trucking background. You know, it was very common that whether you were a broker, a carrier, somewhere in between, you started somewhere in the trucking industry, and they were very trucking-centric conferences. This year, it was very tech-centric. I ran into a lot of people that that did not have a trucking background at all. Many people coming from tech and other industries. So just a very different feel. And I think it was more pronounced because I had missed several years. There was a couple years they didn't do the conference. My first time back in a while. It was interesting. I got to talk to a lot of people who really wanted to know more about the trucking industry. I was surprised by how upbeat the conference was. The TIA, by the way, did a fantastic job of putting that on. Brent's going to be joining me at 10:30 today, so I may hold off, and Brent and I could talk about the conference because we were both there. I think what I'll do is get to some calls instead. So go ahead and line up those calls. Hit that call now button on your app or 855-950-3835. I'll come back to the topic of the TIA conference and what's going on in the industry, what we can expect. One of the things I always love about the TIA conference is they bring in several economists to kind of give their predictions, and I was really looking forward to that this year and wanted to hear what Noel would put together, and we got that. It was Saturday morning. I will talk about that a little bit more when we get Brent on. We're going to go to the phones. Terrence, good morning.
How you doing, Kev? I don't know if I hang up on you, you'll know why.
I know. If I hang up on you, you'll know why. If our live stream goes blank.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to let everyone know that Leanne did pass, so.
So sorry to hear that.
She went peacefully.
Okay, good. Yeah, boy, what a rough time. I can't imagine what you're going through.
Difficult to watch.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'll bet.
I just wanted to not to bring the show, and happy anniversary, too.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to let everyone know, and I know a lot of people are pulling for me, and I appreciate that.
They are.
And all your help.
You know, if you need anything at all, just reach out. The whole tribe feels that way.
Yep. All right. I'm going to get off. Thanks,
okay.
Kev.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't.
All right. Yeah. All right. We will talk to you soon. All right. Back to the conference. Calls are open. Lines are open. 855-950-3835. Like I said, it was a different feel, but I was surprised at how positive it was. It was very upbeat, and I will tell you that if you think this economy has been hard on carriers, it has been really difficult on brokers. We have lost, and we need to. Just like we need to lose carriers, we need to lose brokers. That's how business works. There's so much work available. That's the demand. And supply of service providers has to kind of match that. And we're still fairly high above that line of balance, depending on what statistic you're looking at. But it was interesting to see, like I said, the shift in dynamic of the industry. It felt more like a tech conference in a lot of ways. Now, I did get to also see a lot of trucking veterans that have been around a long time. But as I was mingling and just talking to people and kind of getting their story, a lot of them did not have a lot of trucking experience. The one thing I was really shocked about, the exhibit floor where the vendors set up their booth, kind of like any other convention or trade show, was absolutely loaded with what we refer to as TMS, Transportation Management Systems. It's the core software that you would run a trucking company on or a brokerage, because technically trucking companies and brokerages do a lot of the same things. So you'll see some TMS is really geared towards small carriers. Some TMS is really geared towards brokers. The small side of the market for TMS used to be almost non-existent, and now that space has exploded. At one point, we looked at turning profit gauges into a TMS. And we decided not to, because I thought the market a couple of years ago was a little crowded. And there's some really good TMS products out there. We created profit gauges as an accounting system only for small carriers. Now, the interesting thing is most TMSs have a lot of modules. So if you want a module to manage trucks, like licensing and maintenance and all kinds of things, you can buy a TMS module for that. If you want a module to manage employee drivers, like an HR kind of module, then you add that module. If you want dispatch, then you add that module. If you want settlements for leased on owner operators, you might add that module. So they're kind of like building blocks, most of them, and you pick and choose. The one thing almost none of them have, I'm trying to think if I can even think of one, they almost never have accounting. What they do, most of them interface with other accounting programs. So, for example, QuickBooks is the big one, especially on the smaller side of the market. The TMS itself does not have accounting. You use QuickBooks. You attach the two accounts. So it's interesting that we started as an accounting program, almost decided to kind of morph it into a total management system there, TMS. But we are still considering finding the TMSs on the market that are really good for like 10 trucks and under. Usually you're probably not even going to consider a TMS until a lot of companies don't even think about it till that 10 or 15, 20 truck. I would say there's some small TMSs on the market now I'd be looking at if I had 5 trucks. Yeah, and it would really start to streamline your operation, get your numbers all in one place, help you run the business. So I'm thinking out loud, and I just thought to myself that if this were a project, it's not going to be till next year. But I'm just kind of thinking out loud of the process I went through, and I was walking around looking at what was available on the market. There are enough really small TMSs now. And QuickBooks, honestly, QuickBooks is a great accounting program. It's just not a good accounting program for owner-operators and small carriers because it can't do cost per mile. And cost per mile is a really important metric for us. Revenue per mile, cost per mile, profit per mile, also by hour and day. But QuickBooks does not do per mile. So now what you would end up with is a TMS that interfaces with QuickBooks, and then you would have to export your business reports out of QuickBooks into a spreadsheet, find somebody to write a good spreadsheet to do your cost per mile and per day and those kind of things. And it gets to be a pretty ugly system. And then I was just looking at the chat, and somebody's wondering if it's driving me nuts standing in one place. Yes, it kind of is. So I normally wander all over the place when I do the show. I've got a big, long extension cord, and I wander all over the room. But I am staying in one place now because we are on the live stream. Actually, I don't know if you noticed, up until now, all of the live streams I did, I was sitting down at the high desk, and that was so that I wouldn't wander around. After a week and a half, I'm hoping that I'm good here. So far, so good. I haven't wandered off screen. It looks like Brent is here early. So Brent's in the screening room right now. I will give them just a minute to get him screened, and then I'll get Brent in here. I think he's traveling again today. Brent does a lot of traveling. Yeah, he's going to check in early here. We will go to Brent, and we will also start taking calls. So I see we've got some calls coming in. Go ahead and line those up. Hit your call now button or dial 855-950-3835. Brent from truckstop.com. Good morning.
Well, good morning, KR. I felt like I just left you.
It seems like we were just having lunch together or breakfast or talking about something, or actually you and I had a great time presenting at the TIA.
Was
a great session.
We had a fantastic time. We had about 75 brokers in the room and listening to how to understand their relationship with their carrier a lot better. So it was a really fun time.
Yeah. Hey, you were in that last session Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. One of the speakers on Saturday morning, and there were a lot of sessions at this event. Mm-hmm. A lot. There was a lot going on, multiple sessions going on for multiple days. I thought it was nice that one of the speakers Saturday morning referenced our session. Did you catch that?
I sure did. I sure did. And actually, I knew that this person was in the room. It's actually Truck Stops competition. I thought that was kind of fun, and which is good. But they were sitting in the back of the room. I actually talked to them before the session ever started, and it's always good. This industry, we all need each other. I mean, I think that's one of the things that I keep talking about, and you talk about it as well, Kevin, is that a broker needs a carrier. The shipper needs the broker and the carrier. So everybody needs each other. And so the more we sort of understand the need for all three parties to work together really well and be profitable, and the easier it will be for this industry to run better.
Absolutely. And you really got a feel for that at this event, more so than ever. I'm starting to feel like we've been pounding this message for a long time, and both sides of the industry have acknowledged the need for better relationships between brokers and carriers. Mm-hmm. But I felt like there was a breakthrough. I felt like it was a more, I don't want to say serious topic because it's always been serious, but I felt like there was more movement in that direction instead of just talking about it like maybe we've been doing for a couple of years.
Well, yeah, I've kind of sensed the same thing you did, Kevin. And I think part of this sort of new mindset is that everybody just experienced something that we'd never experienced in our life before. I mean, we're the generation that really had no conflicts. I mean, yes, we had 9/11 as far as the attack on our country and things like that, but we haven't had like a war to go through or something that sort of sets our minds that life is not as comfortable and easy as we think it is. And the pandemic kind of shook us a little bit, at least enough, I think, to recognize that life's really about relationships and people and taking care of each other. And you think about how truckers responded during the pandemic, and nobody responded more in a servant kind of way than the trucking industry did on continuing to do what they do to keep our country strong. So I think it's just a mindset. I mean, people are different. Shippers don't want to ever, I can tell you this, a shipper manufacturer doesn't ever want to go through what they did in the pandemic because they couldn't get their goods to market. And so they never want to go through that again.
Well, yeah, when you think about it, that if you are a shipper and you have a product that needs to move and you can't get it moved, you might as well just be shut down. Revenue stops at that point.
Sure.
That's a really bad place to be. And you could see it because we got to the point where they were willing to pay quite a bit of money to move what they had to move because you'd rather move and sell a product at a smaller margin than not get it moved at all.
Well, 100%. And the shippers that I talk to, Kevin, and this is for any carrier out there, this is something good to remember, that they will default to getting the goods there over hedging, leveraging price anytime. Because as you said, and I've said it too, is that if these goods don't get to market, they don't make a profit. And so therefore that traffic manager certainly might lose his or her job, but the company loses their profit margin. And so none of them want that ever again. And boy, was it such a difficult thing to do just in general, or go through during the pandemic. And I've heard from shippers, Kevin, over and over and over. I go to lots of shows, I talk to lots of shippers, and everyone will tell you straight up, we're doing everything we can as a shipper to work more beneficially with our transportation providers, and that's carriers and brokers, than ever before, because we can't go through that because of how the threat that it created for our company. And so that's good to know. So hopefully that's what you're seeing more. That's what you're seeing, through what you were feeling at the show, that they're not, they're more open to working together. So I would agree with you with that.
Yeah. It like I said, you and I have been talking about it for a long time. My theme, and I really enjoyed the way Liz Wayne put the panel together for us, and the questions and the polls. And, my theme was we talked about a lot of the issues that occur between brokers and small carriers. And I like to use small because I do focus on the smaller side of both of those markets. And one of the things that I kept noticing was whether we were talking about freight fraud, rate transparency, whatever the issue might be, the lack of good communication and good flow of information. And I just kept thinking to myself, we could focus on these problems, and the industry already is. Truckstop.com has done amazing things on the fraud side already. And that's good, and we should have that. But I just kept thinking to myself that if we truly get to a place where we are cooperating within the industry, a lot of those problems just disappear on their own.
Oh, absolutely they do. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that once something gets, let's put it this way, as you experience life and you realize that you may not have something you thought was always going to be there, your perspective changes. And to watch that perspective change is very unique. And so I think that now look, it's going to be slow. It won't be fast, but more and more people will begin to work more beneficially. And so what I mean, when I say beneficially, I mean, they're going to be saying, okay, well, what can you move this load today profitably for? Not what can you move it for? And where everybody's hedging each other and leveraging each other and, trying to save 1%, 2% here. But so to me, I think that's what you're going to see over and over. And I've seen more of that and I'll tell you what's going to do it, Kevin. I'm so glad you brought this up. This is what's going to do it. Technology, and not technology for technology's sake, but technology that gives the information to the party that has never really had it, and that's the shipper. The more they see the marketplace, the more they see, oh, well, that's what it costs to move today. So I'm more willing to agree to it. So, I know sometimes technology and people can be fearful of technology like it's Big Brother. It looks over your shoulder all the time. Well, in this case, I think it's going to end up benefiting the carrier, especially the small carrier, in a tremendous way. Yeah,
I was saying before you came on, and you and I talked about this, I brought this up to you as well, that my attendance at this event has been sporadic. Right. You reminded me, I thought I did a keynote in like 17 or 18. You said it was 13. No. I wasn't even close. And then, with COVID, we missed a couple of years. So I haven't been at this event year after year after year like a lot of the truck shows. And to me, I was really shocked at how the feel had changed. Not in a bad way, just it changed. Sure. And to me, if you go to Matt's, we were just at Matt's. Matt's is a truck show. It's about trucks. It's about equipment. It's about, the hard side of trucking. And And this event used to feel a lot like that to me too, even though, you didn't have truck vendors, but the people that were there had a very strong trucking background for a long time. I mean, it was more unusual for somebody to come in to even the broker side of things from some other random industry. Most of the people there kind of grew up in trucking, or it had been a big part of their career. And the shift now is into technology. And I was shocked at how many people just wanted to know more about the trucking side of things because they didn't have a lot of history in the industry. So it just kind of changed the feel for me this year.
Yeah, no doubt. It was. I think that, Kevin, and I remember being at Mid America and you and I talking to many of the owner operators that came to the CMC, and you were talking about, hey, if you really want to do what Kevin, you've been giving them advice for years and years to do, which is go meet person to person, face to face with a broker. Boy, you've got about 15 to 1,800 of them all located in one spot for about 4 days. So you would be the belle of the ball.
Yes.
Everyone would want to talk to you. So, and I think that your presence there is a good leading indicator as to how maybe a few more carriers might want to come to something like this if they're looking to really beneficially grow their business. And so I think that you should have a presence there every year from the standpoint of making sure that brokers, third-party logistics providers, really continue to understand where the carrier part of the marketplace is. Where is capacity sitting today? Because they sure need it. There's no doubt.
It's again, it was interesting to watch, and from my perspective, more of the carrier side. When I would talk to brokers, and we've talked about this, and Liz is a part of the show and the panel, and I've talked with Liz about this. Across the board, when you can talk to, again, I'm going to say a small broker about some of their favorite carriers, they're all like, owner-operators are very small fleets that when they have a good relationship with some of those guys, they absolutely love it. And you hear the way they talk about them. It's like, the freight that they handle for me, I just know it's taken care of. I don't have to worry about it all the time. And so we've all experienced that from both sides. We know a lot of small carriers that say, once I had a good relationship with 2 or 3 brokers, I wasn't constantly chasing freight anymore. My rates actually went up. I was working less. So we hear it over and over. When these two groups connect in a meaningful way, everybody benefits. And ultimately, our shared customer benefits the shipping community. So we know we need to do more of it. They know we need to do more of it. I don't think there's been enough of a push to kind of make it happen. And it almost feels like we're reaching a tipping point.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think when you go through something dramatic, the new you get a new normal. So maybe the new normal is, and I'll say this over and over and over again because you and I talked about it some when we were talking to the brokers. Is that transparency creates relationships? It creates trust inside of any communication, which creates a better relationship. If broker A was talking to carrier A, and carrier A said, I can't haul it for that because, here's where I need to be for profitability. And you've got more and more communication on the actual cost structure of a carrier, then the broker is going to be much more understanding on, well, what is the market? And I realize we're in a supply and demand market, and everybody has to sort of figure out where we are in the pressure of the marketplace. But I can tell you that the more you understand somebody else's business, and you have to have them, the more likely you are to try to find a way to create a rate that everyone can live with and live with profitably.
Yeah, speaking of rates, that's a good segue into
sure.
Saturday mornings, kind of financial recap, a couple, economists and analysts. And every year I keep hoping for clarity on where we're going. And Every time I do, I'm disappointed again. I I've just never seen a market like this. I'm going all the way back to was Truck Stops Connected Conference in 17? Does that sound right, or was it 18?
We had one in which about the one you were in Phoenix?
Yes.
Yeah, that would have been 2017.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that seems right. And one of the reasons I think it seems right is we were talking an awful lot about the top of the market back then.
Mm-hmm.
And then 18 happened with the LDs, and we got that bump. We thought, well, that makes sense. That changed the supply and demand. And then 20 came and COVID, and the market's been a mess. It's been hard to predict. There's been great years, not so great years, just kind of all over the board. And the answer has always been, well, COVID did that. I really liked one of the statements that Noel Perry made. He kind of made it clear. He said, COVID didn't do that. The government did that. And he's absolutely correct.
That's correct.
It wasn't
correct.
COVID. It was the government's response to COVID that did that. So I liked that he clarified that. Yeah. But what was interesting for me, we still don't have any clarity as far as I'm concerned.
No, we don't.
Even Noel said, expect the same that we've got now for a while, at least the rest of the year, or another drop. He wasn't really optimistic on the upside, but he was a little cautionary about a downside. But then he said, and a lot of people might be surprised by that, we're not really in a recession or a downturn.
Oh, yeah, no, not at all. Yeah. The overall economy's been chugging along at a fairly decent rate.
Yeah, and other than the fact that we have too much capacity on the trucking side, there's nothing unusual about the rates. They're not down significantly at all. In fact, it seemed to me like, and I was going to take a bunch of pictures of some of those charts so I could work on them a little more, but it seemed to me like if you took a history and you went back to, say, as far back as you wanted, but if you just went back to 2014, 2015, started tracking the numbers, it almost looked to me like on a lot of the charts, if you just pulled out the COVID years, just pull them out, leave them blank, that the trajectory of the industry and the market and rates and all that are right where you would expect them to be if you just pulled those years out of there and didn't look at them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the trend and they would be right along the normal balance of the marketplace continuing to have more freight in it. And by the way, that's the good thing about our marketplace and what the transportation, full truckload transportation in the United States is it continues to expand. And Noel had a great slide on that. He tracks that better than anybody else, and how the marketplace continues to expand and the rate continues to expand. His point, and I think it's well founded, and I know you've talked about this some too, is that if you look at inflation, then it's right on trend. It's just right on trend. Trend means look, it's just a normal market, and every normal market has challenges in it.
Right. Yeah, I was really shocked that sitting there watching the charts and just kind of visualizing, well, what if we just pulled those couple of years out of there? We'd be right where we expected to be.
Right. Yeah. I pull them out every time because they're outlier markets. Look, when you get a market like 21 and 22 and even 2018, in the beginning of 2019, when you get those, just be thankful. They're markets that you're able to put a lot of profit, save some, invest some, but whatever you do, do not plan for them to be the same way every single year, because you're going to get your you know what handed to you. Which is where
I was about to say there's a real lesson in this, and you just started to touch on that lesson. I don't know what the answer. I don't think there is an answer to this. I think this is just what occurs when you get an outlier like that. So what we saw, and you mentioned it earlier, things got so bad, manufacturers couldn't get their products shipped. They were willing to do anything to get a product shipped. So at that point, it's clear that the market needs more capacity. We're
yeah.
we're constrained on capacity. One, drivers can only work so many hours. It's a crazy industry anyway. When rates spike that high, we love that on our side, clearly, but it was almost unsustainable. We had horrible supply chain issues. It was really starting to affect everybody. It was affecting the economy. So when I hear this, we have to make it harder to get into the industry. Well, no, we don't. Right? We don't ever talk about that in any other industry that I'm aware of. Why do we want to make it harder to get in? That would have been even harder on the supply chain. It helped that it is easy to go buy a truck and start hauling freight. It's not that complicated, and it shouldn't be. But we also have to realize that that will create a lot of chaos. I mean, really what we saw was because of COVID and the government's response to it and all of the money, and Noel's big on this, not just all the money that flooded into the market from the government, but the fact when it flooded in, there really weren't experiences to spend that money on. People weren't getting on airplanes. They weren't going on vacations. They weren't going on cruises. They weren't traveling. So all of a sudden, there's a lot of money, no real experience or service to spend it on, but a lot of stuff. You could go online and order whatever you wanted, and people did. And because of that, we needed a lot more trucks, and we needed a lot more brokers. And we got them. But then at some point,
happy to have them.
Right. And there will be some great companies that come out of that. We talk about the fact that the people who got in at the top are much more likely to be the first ones exiting the market. We're already seeing that. But that's just averages. There will be some great companies that started at the top and become leaders in this industry someday. So it was a crazy cycle, but I don't see how it could have gone any other way.
It couldn't have. I mean, we needed more trucks at that time, and they came in the market. Here's the thing. To me, I go back to the founding of our country, Kevin. I know that's a long way to go, but why in the world would you want to keep somebody from chasing their dream?
Exactly.
I mean, as long as they're qualified. I mean, if you're qualified, please go and chase it. And look, in any marketplace that has a supply and demand aspect to it is going to, the people that operate it well are going to achieve. The ones that operate it not as well are going to be in the middle, and the ones that don't operate it very well are going to be on the bottom, and they're going to work their ways out. And that's going to teach them, the ones on the bottom that don't operate well, it'll teach them, if I'm going to do this again, I have to operate well. And so it allows you to educate yourself and get back in a marketplace. So I just don't see any reason why we would keep anybody from wanting to chase their dream of being an independent business owner. I just think that's against human desire, and that's against the American way.
You're right. You know where it comes from? It comes from people who are already in the business and worried. That's really where it comes from. They got in, and once they're in, well, let's make it harder for other people to get in, because then that makes it easier for us to compete. So I see that kind of sentiment comes from that bottom third of the market that just did not do their homework, didn't really get prepared to be in business, but they got in when things were good, and now they're not very happy that things aren't staying that way, and they'd rather keep other people out. But like you said, that's just un-American.
Well, everyone needs competition, and competition is good for everybody across the board. To say, I don't want competition, is an absolute. No one will ever win in that. And so, and I just liken that to, most people don't know this story. This is a great story. Back in the day, when Apple had a lot of financial problems, and they were right at the edge of becoming a non-company, and most people don't know this happened to Apple back in the 80s.
They were within days.
Within days. You know who gave them several $100 million and bought some of their stock to keep them in business?
I do know, but I'll let you say it.
Microsoft
did. I remember that, and that's when Bill Gates was still making decisions.
That's right. And so he did that because he knows every marketplace knows you have to have good competition. If not, the marketplace won't grow. It will not grow.
So I just wonder if we could turn the clock back, would Bill Gates make that same decision? I'm not sure he expected Apple to come back the way they came back.
Yeah, well, that's true. I think he would, because
probably
you look at what Apple did with their iPhone. They did the same thing, a little different approach. They when Apple had their iPhone out, remember they had a revolutionary phone. No one had anything like it. Well, and no one was developing anything like it and couldn't get there. And they were like, Apple's like, oh, well, we need a competitor. You know who gave Samsung like half of their technology to build the Samsung phone?
Yep.
Apple.
I know.
Apple did. And now look what we've got. We have this really incredible marketplace where in the end you've really only got 3 phone manufacturers anyways. You've got Samsung, you've got Apple, and you have Google making a phone for the most part.
Right.
And so, but in the end, but look at what they sell for.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is the way it works. You have to have a good competitor. If not, it's not good for anyone. And so that, and most people don't know that. They think, oh, I'd like to be the only provider. That is a short-lived success ratio.
Not only that, a lot of people also think they want to be the first big player in a new market, like a new technology. Most of the time, if you go back and look historically, the leaders, the early companies many times don't even survive.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Yeah. Without a doubt. Yeah. Because they don't iterate enough to survive through it.
And it's such a new market that there's no playbook. You got to kind of make things up as you go many times when you're in a brand new market like that. And a lot of times it's the companies that kind of sat back and watched, maybe worked on their technology, but didn't really try to grow and watch the mistakes that get made. And a lot of times those early pioneers in an industry are just gone. Well, really, let's think about it. We were just talking about phones. Who really had one of the most popular first smartphones?
Oh, well, I guess would you say BlackBerry did?
Yeah.
I mean,
I know they're still around today, but they're really not the phone market anymore. But they
really
were. I mean, that almost became the name of smartphones. Hey, grab your BlackBerry. I mean, it almost became that generic. They were the leader in that, and they're just gone.
Yeah, without a doubt. Though they refused to iterate.
Right.
And all of it was behind the data aspect. They were on security, and boy, were they really good at security. As a matter of fact, the federal government forever would only ever use a BlackBerry because of security, excellent security. But they limited the amount of iteration. There's if you haven't watched the documentary on BlackBerry, it is so good.
I love that kind of stuff.
Every piece.
I haven't seen that.
You'll understand every piece on how they created their own demise.
Got it. I need to watch that. What's the name of it? I'm sure I can find it.
Oh gosh, I'll have to.
Guess who our first caller is?
Oh my gosh. I would hate Christian from the CMC.
No.
America. No,
think something even more relevant to the session we just did with Liz. Who's our first caller today?
Well, is it Liz Wayne?
No. Come on, you got it. Maybe you haven't had enough caffeine this morning.
Maybe not. Who is it?
It's Tony.
Oh, it's Tony, our favorite guy. All right, fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm glad Tony's on.
We're gonna go to Texas. Tony, were your ears burning this week?
Good eye, mate. Hey, well, with that intro, with the president of I Hate Brokers Trucking, I won't even start on truckstop.com yet. No, yeah.
So I got to tell you a little story.
Burning.
I got to tell you a little story. And Brent, I did not realize till later on in the day how much I kind of rattled Liz. I didn't.
Oh, really?
I wasn't. Well, I was trying to rattle her a little bit, but I didn't. She handled it so well, but later on I found out I kind of shook her up a little bit. So, Tony, Liz got up there and kind of told the story of Broker Connect and how you were the first caller. And, you gave her such a hard time, and she was kind of freaking out, but she held her own. And when she got done,
well, stay tuned because that's about to continue.
When she got done, that it was my turn, and I said, Liz, you know that Tony's in the audience here today, right? And the first guy that asked a question, his name tag said Anthony, and Liz was a little freaked out. She handled it so well, though.
Yes, I love that.
I didn't think anything of it, but when I was talking to somebody later, they said, yeah, Liz was a little rattled at first. I would have never known it. She did it so well.
Well, I have to pay that guy some money. The only reason why I wasn't there is my truck is in the shop. Just for all of those that are following, it is not the injector, but it is the manifold that has put out some soot. So I'm going to have to fix that manifold and replace the core of the DPF in the PACCAR. So that the reefer, the wheel seal, everything broke at the same time on Friday. So I am stuck here at Redneck Diesel. Thank you, Paul, for $7,000 on that. So I did not make it to Phoenix. So that's not a good enough excuse. But yeah, I wish I was there.
We'll accept it.
But as far as brokers. Did I not call on Friday and tell you about my conversation with C.H. Robinson, where I asked my longtime broker relationship person that I've been dealing with for something like, 8 years, I finally asked him, am I ever going to get direct freight? You always talk about relationships. I've been working on this, inviting him to things. He never contacted. He finally found out and said, it's C.H. Robinson's policy now where we do not want relationships with small carriers unless you have 14 loads a day with us. In other words, 25 trucks or more. I thought that completely was backwards compared to what you said. And you had Joel and Henry and everybody on the line, and somehow you said that made sense. And I might have missed something. I also heard that, he's the exception. You go find another broker. Just go look somewhere else.
Well, yeah, and let me address that.
So I need clarification.
I'm going to clarify. So, and I have...
Time out, just a couple more things.
All right.
There's people out there that are saying this is the main problem that they're having is that brokers don't want relationships, and you hate when people say that. You say, yes, they do, and that's what you've been talking about. But here, he said it himself.
Well, I also had to address this at the broker convention, and Brent will back me up on this. I made the same statements, multiple statements about this issue to the brokers, which I kind of feel like that's my role in this. Like I'm the one in the middle saying, hold on, let's figure this out. So here's what I told the brokers who are trying to do the same thing, the brokers like Liz and some of the others. They really do want relationships. I will promise you that. We'll get them on here and they will tell you that. That does not mean that every broker out there wants to do that. It doesn't mean that every agent within a brokerage wants to do that. And it doesn't mean that every carrier wants to do that. And I had to tell the brokers, I don't care if you hear no 15 times. Try 16, 17, 20. It's no different than what a broker has to deal with on the sales side. You don't get to walk through every shipper's door and get freight from them. You have to sell yourself. And the mantra in sales, Brent, jump in here. You've been in sales your whole life. Isn't the whole thing you have to hear this many no's to get to a yes? And most industries kind of know that average even, don't they?
No, sure they do. Usually it's somewhere between 7 and 9 no's just to be able to get a yes.
Well, I don't know about C.H. Robinson anymore because if they're saying that is their policy, that is the way that they're going as a company, I don't really have any faith in brokers. I've always, this
hold
is
on
not
a second.
joke.
Let's get another.
I do not have any faith in brokers.
Well, then
they are 1 + 1 = 3.
You will pay the price ultimately for having that attitude. But Brent, jump in here. Roughly, how many brokers are licensed in the U.S.?
I am I am trying to listen, but not after that. It makes it hard. Of
course
clarify.
it's hard.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the point.
yeah.
It's hard. I'm going to get to that. It should be hard.
Yeah.
You want it to be
Tony,
hard.
Yeah.
That's fine. I like competition. I like all of that. But help me.
Yeah, Tony, it's a good. I mean, first off, I can appreciate you hearing that and going, well, that sucks. That makes it hard. And first off, I'm not sure that's the policy of C.H. Robinson. That seems a little anti-productive. Maybe that's one person's opinion. And so that seems, because they got a long history of being in this marketplace. That's one thing. Number two, and to Kevin's point, there's around 12,000 active brokers in the United States that work in the open marketplace. And what I mean by the open marketplace, that's where they move their freight through all kinds of carriers, and then they put anything they can't move by their own methodology, their own technologies, or their own databases. They put it on the load boards like Truckstop. And so there's so many opportunities, and I hear carriers get frustrated a lot of times by different companies. And look, that's part of that's just business. Part of that's just personality. The other part is, hey man, as my dad always said, son, there's a lot of fish in the sea. Go fish somewhere else. But I get your frustration. Yeah, I get your frustration there.
Tony, let me give you another example.
I've been raised that middlemen are a waste of time. Now, what is a broker more than a middleman? And there's people out there that agree. You can tell me that I'm on my own.
Stop a second then.
But
if that's the case, and if you truly feel that way, at some point we're going to have to stop arguing or even discussing this, and just go get just go get your own freight.
Yeah, I knew that was coming, and believe me, I'm trying.
Well, you're going to find out how hard it is. You think it's hard to find a broker to build a relationship with. It's really not that hard. I will tell you how hard it is to go beat on a shipper's door and get them to give freight to you with one truck. You want to talk about hard? That's going to be hard, really difficult. In fact, in my opinion, it's not worth it. My model is build good relationships with brokers first. At some point, you may get to the point, even with a single truck, that you can build some direct freight without the broker. It might happen. But I can promise you this. If you think it's hard to find a couple good brokers to build a relationship with, wait till you go start knocking on shippers' doors. You'll find out what hard really is, especially in this market, because it's flooded with people beating on their doors trying to get some freight right now. But let's go back and I'll tell you how consistent I am on this. Let me
this concept of a necessary evil.
Hold on. Yeah, I don't like that phrase. Why are they evil? They're not evil. They make for an efficient freight system. They're not evil at all. They're an integral part. No, they don't. We have middlemen in lots of industries for a reason. I'm a middleman. I don't produce all the stuff we sell out of our warehouse. How could I? It'd be impossible. But we provide a service because we went out and found the very best products, in our opinion, in all those areas. We bring them into one place. So instead of a small carrier saying, oh my God, I have to go put in 13 orders today at 13 different websites. Well, no, we're a middleman. We brought all those things to one place. There's value in that service. Let's just get rid of the brokers and you'll find out how necessary they are. And they're not a necessary evil. They are a necessary component of an efficient freight system. Without brokers, you want to see inflation explode? Pull the brokers out of the market right now. Watch what happens. Prices of everything would go up. Well, why not? The number of empty miles being traveled by trucks without brokers today would probably double.
Oh, yeah.
Well, with them saying that we don't want a relationship as a company with small carriers.
So what?
I don't see why I would need that.
There's tens of thousands of other companies. Let me go back to my example and show you how consistent I am with this whole concept. I went through this. Do I also talk about this with good maintenance shops? build relationships, support them. That's not easy either. I went through an entire year in Jacksonville, Florida, trying to find
biggest brokerage.
Doesn't matter.
They are trying to collect all the freight that they can, even claiming that they have trucks.
Of course they are trying to collect all the freight that they can. That's what businesses do. They grow.
Hey, Kevin, let me
it's going to cost us money because they have to get paid too, and that's the reason why.
No, see, I'm going to let Brent in a second, but let me tell you something. The broker does not necessarily add a penny to the cost of transportation. If the broker disappears, the money that the broker currently makes will be split between the shipper and the carrier, but because of the inefficiencies in the market, all of those costs will go up and the entire economy will pay for it. Middlemen, let me give you another example. Try to find...
Not before I get the counter. They are the inefficiency that's causing the market.
Let's use another example in our... Many of the products you can buy in our store, you can get them cheaper from us than you can from the manufacturer's website. Why would that be? Well, wait a minute. We had to take a little piece. How can we take a piece and the cost is still less? How would that be possible?
Go on.
Well, no, I'm waiting for you to catch on. How would that be possible? And you can go check this yourself. We sell products sometimes cheaper than the manufacturer does. So why can't a broker move freight cheaper than the shipper would if they had to go out and shop the market themselves? So you are under the assumption that the broker adds to the cost of transportation. That's not a correct assumption.
I don't think I've heard this before, so I'm waiting. They can find carriers easier. That would be my first go-to reason.
Shippers, just like manufacturers, shippers don't necessarily want to be in the market to find good, inexpensive transportation. It's a lot of work. They would rather run their business. The model in almost all businesses now is you outsource everything except your core competency. So why can we sometimes sell a product cheaper than the manufacturer? Because the manufacturer doesn't want to build and market a website.
Right.
There's a lot of work that goes into marketing, but we're really good at that. We know our market.
Thank you for reminding me about this.
We know our tribe.
I may have forgotten about this reason, and yes, this is very important. I hope there's a lot of people following and hearing this, because that goes a long way. I missed it. But still, them saying this, we don't want a relationship. Oh God, what do I do?
Well, look,
Brent,
I think that sucks.
Me. When I call truckstop.com,
sure,
and I pay for 2 months and not able to use the system because I can't log in, and then when I call and nobody answers for 6 hours, and they say it's because we only have one person answering the phone, it keeps coming back to keep trying until you find one, and I'm running out of time.
So let me go back to my example. I spent a year in Jacksonville trying to find a good repair shop to build a relationship. Just one. I never found one. I was so disappointed. I moved my entire business again to Orlando. And then it took me almost another year in Orlando before I finally found a shop that I was really interested in building a relationship with. So this isn't just brokers. It's every relationship you have in business. And when you say it's hard, that's what we want. If it were easy, everybody would do this, and you would have to go find something hard to do to set yourself apart. So when you think in your mind, this business strategy Kevin keeps talking about is really hard, there's a reason. It should be hard. That's where the opportunities are.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, Tony, real quick. I might have to drop off here in just a few minutes because I have a doctor's appointment. But hey, real quick, and Kevin's right on the money with what he's saying. But let me add a couple more maybe nuances to this. Now, number one is that the broker is just a resource to you. It's not the resource. So there's around 12,000 active brokers in the marketplace. There's 4 million shippers. All right, so that's a lot, right? So you could try to do business across the board. You've got easy access to brokers. As a matter of fact, they will pursue you. So they'll pursue you and pursue you. So what I want you to think about is time. The time that it takes you to get a load from a broker as compared to maybe the time it may take you to get a load from a shipper. Now, look, if you can get shipper freight and they can be consistent with you, and then fantastic. I mean, Kevin and I would both encourage you dramatically to continue to pursue that, because
I'm only using a broker to get to their shippers. That's the only reason I'm using.
But here's the reason why a shipper uses a broker or a large carrier is that the shipper really doesn't have the ability to do business directly with you because they don't have time. There's less than 20%.
Seems awfully lazy to me.
Well,
I wish I could be that lazy about it.
Hey, Tony, hold on.
Think about this.
You are that lazy. Stop bitching about repair shops and drone truck.
You'd have a hard time proving that.
So Tony, let me say this: they're not lazy. I want you to think about it. You run a truck and you make a profit off of it, so that's your livelihood. The shipper
lazy because I'm only allowed to work 70 hours a week.
Well, no, I understand.
That's probably lazy. Okay. Yeah.
Put 20 or 30 more hours in a week turning wrenches on your own truck. You don't need those damn shops. Just do it yourself.
Well,
okay, I do.
So let me say
I do that.
Let me say this. All right. So you've got the shipper. The reason that they're not capable of moving their own freight is not because they're lazy. It's because it's a very, very small cost to them. It's not a profit center. It's just a cost in order to get the things that they make to market so they can sell and they can make the real profit. So they don't really care about being great at transportation because there's a big industry out there that will do it for them. And it's like 6 to 9% of their product they make is in the transportation. So they're like, it's a very small thing. If there's other people that'll do it for me, great. I'll get back to making more of my product.
And Brent,
that's the way all manufacturers are.
Brent, you deal with every aspect through the supply chain. You go to shippers conventions.
Sure. Yeah.
I can't point one out right now, but I guarantee, and I know you know this too, there is some shipper out there that used to try to move their own freight. And it's a part of the business, got to get done, but they were doing it themselves. They brought in a broker or two or three and said, here, you guys handle all our freight. And their shipping cost went down.
Oh, way down.
Well, I know what every carrier thinks of them when they hear that.
Well, I guess I got to run.
They feel like they don't care about them. They want to keep them in line when they go to pick up that freight. What is your pickup number? Well, hell, I don't know. The broker's got it.
Hey, Tony, here's your problem.
Not good relationship.
Hey, Kevin, I've got to run. I'm sorry. I've got to, Tony. I love talking. Hey, Tony, I love talking to you. Let's keep talking, man, because we can keep solving problems. We keep talking, man. But thank you so much for the call today. I got to run. Talk to you later, Tony.
Best
Bye-bye.
wishes on your doctor's appointment.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
All right. So, Tony, that statement that I just made is absolutely true, happens all the time. The broker does not come in and add to the cost of transportation. Many times they come in and take away from it. They make it more
Money
efficient,
doesn't buy everything.
But we're talking about money. In business,
Sometimes
money
you've got to pay for a relationship. And that doesn't do much for the relationship. Yeah, it saves them money. That's very big. You'll need to keep reminding me of that.
Don't try to build relationships with people who tell you they don't want relationships. I am shocked that this is their policy. It never used to be. But if it is, I'm trusting that what you're telling me is true. And if it is, okay, move on. This is
Not only did he say that, but if people forgot, he said D.H. Robinson wants small carriers to book online. They have, the book it now, you just click a button. They want us, people like me, to do that so that they don't have to talk to anybody.
I could tell you there would be times in my operation as a small carrier where I would love that as an option. Doesn't mean I'm going to use it all the time. In fact, there's no way I would use it all the time. But there may be times where I've got to get back to a good shipper of mine or a good broker somewhere else, and I just want to grab a load that covers my cost. And there's a quick, easy way to do it. instead of complaining about all the stuff, look at it as opportunities and tools. If C.H. Robinson is telling you they don't want to build a relationship,
the relationship part,
then drop
yeah,
it.
This doesn't help that.
Right, because if that's what they're claiming, fine. Do you know they're not the biggest brokerage around anymore? Do you know who is? Brand new on the list. We just saw this list at this event. Transport Topics puts out multiple lists around the industry, biggest carriers by revenue. They just released their biggest brokers by revenue, and usually it's C.H. Robinson and,
Landstar.
UPS is usually way up there. There is a new company on the list that has never been on the list before, and they debuted at number 1. Any guess who it is?
Suntech TTS thing, which is like a conglomeration of 3 of them merged together?
No, because all of those have been on the list. It's the top 100 brokers. So there's a reason why this broker came from never being on the list to number 1. We don't think of them as a brokerage at all. But they are.
Landstar.
They're huge. Nope. No, Landstar, when we talk about Landstar brokerage, they are a true brokerage. That's a separate company from the carrier. You're as soon as I say it, you're going to go, oh, yeah, well, I get it.
Lines.
No. Think
like
of think of a very, very big name. Everybody knows. Oh, I just wandered off camera. Everybody knows this
Swift,
name.
Walmart. It's not Walmart, but
you're closer when you say Walmart.
Pepsi.
You're closer
Pepsi,
when you say Walmart. Think of another
Prime,
big retailer.
Oh. But a broker?
Huge retailer. Probably the most famous retailer in the entire world. They're everywhere.
Amazon.
Yes, Amazon is now the largest third-party logistics company, number 1 now.
They've actually got a decent couple of systems that they go through that I'm actually looking at, where I don't want to give away all my secrets, but in the interest of competition, you can pull like power only with them, plus dry freight, local.
Yeah, they got a lot going on.
And dedicated reps. Spot market, I kind of like the way they do it.
They've got, but I don't
agree with the company's business practices, but
I was going to say I could bring 20 people in here that would hate the way they're too cheap. But that always happens when somebody gets big; they become a target. But my point is, even though I've had people very successful building a relationship with one big broker, I tell the story about C.H. Robinson all the time. That's not my approach. My approach would be small brokers. I would much rather deal with small brokers than big. Just like I prefer when I can to partner with small companies, not big companies. Big companies bring in a whole bunch of other challenges when it comes to relationships. Here's why. You don't build this is a good lesson. You don't build a relationship with a corporation. That doesn't happen. You build a relationship with people who work in that corporation. The bigger the company, the more likely that the people you built the relationship with won't be there a year from now. They may be in a different department. They may be in a different job. They may be in a whole different company. That is common. The bigger the company gets, the more common that is. So I have found that the only big companies I want to build partnerships with, they have to bring a lot of value to the tribe. Otherwise, I don't want to buy. Truck Stop is a great example. I worked my ass off to build a really strong relationship, and I got to the point where I was dealing with the owner of the company, Scott Mosgrove. And then they got bought.
Well, he's got a lot of work to do. I got to say that.
Hold on.
After
he's not there anymore. That's what happens. He was the founder. He was the first guy to ever turn the key and open the door and start that business back in the early 90s. Before anybody even knew what the internet was, He was building, it used to be called the Internet Truck Stop, not truckstop.com.
They've got some work. That's
So,
fine.
but they got bought out by
I love
$1
that,
trillion
they've got some work to do. Their
fund,
customer service sucks.
and they're a whole different company now. And I had to start that relationship over from scratch.
Fine.
And that happens. I prefer not to have a lot of big companies. I went through that with Michelin. Had a fantastic relationship with about a half a dozen people. All of them got moved at the same time, and I had no relationship with anybody that moved into their role. And I just didn't have time to start all over again. So I would much rather deal with companies where I deal with the owner.
Right.
All right. I am going to cut you loose. Great conversation today, by the way. I'm sure you're going to be a regular when we bring back Broker Connect. Let's go to Illinois. Randy, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin, good afternoon. Randy, formerly of the Freedom Fleet. We met at the CMC.
Oh, yes. Good meeting you. What's on your mind today?
Yep. Tony, how did he survive on this phone call so long? I'm sitting there screaming at the truck. I don't even know what state I'm in right now.
It's a good conversation.
Why do these people, I don't know about that one. Why do drivers, small carriers, feel that these brokers are taking things from them and not realizing that one time the majority of this market was created from the shippers, carrier to shipper? Well, the carriers have ruined that relationship so bad that the shippers have gone to brokerages because they don't want to deal with the majority of us. And I've only been in this business 5.5 years, and I figured that out pretty quick.
Yeah, and you are on. I'll add just a little bit to that. I don't think it was anybody's fault. It was a natural progression. So I go back to the point where shippers used to have a very big shipping department. Like there would be a shipping manager. So when I was selling freight, you would have to try to get to the shipping manager because he made the decisions. But there was also a room full of people that acted like freight agents, but they worked for the shipper. That was inefficient. It's hard for a manufacturer to hire people in a shipping department that need to know trucking and transportation and logistics because the manufacturer doesn't know that stuff. And they don't want to know that stuff. It's like, big companies used to do a lot of printing in-house. They don't do that anymore. It's not their core competency. They're not good at it. It changes constantly. They can't keep up. Bigger companies used to have huge legal departments. They don't do that anymore. They contract out to a law firm. That has been a trend forever and ever and ever. And a broker is no different. That is not the core competency of a shipper. So they contract all that out to brokers. But just like when I was talking with Tony, we assume because there's another party in the transaction that needs a profit that the cost had to go up. But it didn't. The efficiencies actually help that lower cost sometimes. No different than my example of us selling another company's product in our store. We can sell it for less than they sell it for, and we both still get a profit, and the consumer gets a better price.
And ultimately, as a carrier, now I'm owner-operator, leased onto a small owner-operator fleet. I dispatch myself. Ultimately, it's my choice to take that route.
Correct.
To take that revenue. I can, and trust me, I say no all the time. Now, thankfully, I've worked over the last 2.5 years as an owner-operator to develop relationships, but they're all with smaller brokerages. These large brokerages I use for, backhauls and stuff because, they have the weird, that freight that's going from the Pacific Northwest to Salt Lake City to Phoenix to get to my money run. So there is a need and there is a place for brokerages within this industry. But ultimately, us as carriers and owner-operators, it's ultimately up to us to sit there and say yes or no. Yeah, unfortunately, that's not going to work for me today. Let me see what else I can find.
Yeah.
And these guys, they have this entitlement because they own a truck and trailer that they're entitled to this, as you've spoken about. I came from the construction industry, very, very fragmented.
Oh, yeah.
You know, eat or get eaten.
Right.
But we never had that entitled mentality that I see in the trucking industry.
We never used to have it in this industry. I don't know where it came from.
As an owner operator, I'm not entitled to anything.
Yeah, as a human being, let's just take it back down to the basics. As a human being, first of all, we should be really, really happy, no matter how ugly this country might be getting. We should still be very happy that we were born in this country where one of the things we do have, we have some rights. They've been eroded quite a bit. We have some rights that make being in business much more likely. There are very few countries around the world where it's as easy to start and get into a business as the United States. Now, it's changed over the last couple decades, but we should still remember that. But what you are given in this country, and we should be very, very grateful and thankful, and I can say it might be the only thing we're given. We're given an opportunity. It's one of the greatest countries in the world to start a small business. And that's the opportunity it's why everybody from the rest of the world wants to flood into our country, because of the opportunities we have. Not the guarantees, not the entitlement. You have an opportunity to build a small business in a free market. That's a wonderful thing. That's all we need. Once you start down that path of, well, no, I took the risk, I'm entitled to a profit, you might as well shut the doors now. You'll never survive. You'll never succeed with an attitude like that.
No, because I was talking to another driver the other day, and it's just like, he's made some changes. And I knowing him for a couple of years now, he eventually wanted to get out of the truck. Well, he's finally been able to do that. And it's just like, and people give him a hard time. And it's just like, look, this was part of his plan. Now, if he needs to pivot because things are a little bit rough in the dispatch service, who are we to sit there and criticize that? He made the decision. It was initially in his plan, but he's also willing to pivot to move forward. If you're not willing to pivot in this industry, you're never going to survive.
My goal within the first 2 years of owning, and I never drove a truck as an employee. I've done a lot of different things in the industry, but I've never been an employee driver. From the day one, I was renting a truck and being paid as an owner-operator, and I did that for a couple months till I was able to buy a truck. So I've done a lot of different things in this industry, but within the first couple of years, my goal was to get out of the driver's seat. Now, I drove full-time for almost 10 years. I had well over 1 million miles. Then I was in and out of the driver's seat, on and off, sometimes part-time, sometimes back to being full-time. But ultimately, I knew I always wanted out. And it wasn't that I didn't like driving. I love driving. That's why I have a coach, and when I can, I travel by driving. But I also knew that I wanted more than that. I needed more of a challenge every day than what I could get from running one truck. And then as you start to grow trucks, at some point you're going to have to get out of the driver's seat. To me, it wasn't going to work to have 3 or 5 trucks with me still driving part-time, because you can't grow from there then unless you decide to stop driving. So even if I would have kept trucks, I wouldn't have been driving. Yet people today will criticize me for that. Oh, well, you failed as an owner-operator. Well, what do you mean I failed? I almost failed several times, and I talk about it all the time, but ultimately I was pretty successful at it. Well, why aren't you still doing it today? Well, because I don't want to. How about that? How about I wanted new challenges? But you're right. We almost penalize people. Well, you don't drive anymore. Well, maybe that's because he built a successful small business.
Exactly. That's one thing. Look, I love driving. This is my third and final career. I consider it my semi-retirement career.
Yeah.
Now as an owner or operator, I can go where I want, when I want, stay in locations that I've always wanted to stay at for a few days. And I was in Salt Lake City the other day. One of our other drivers lives there. He picks me up. We go to a nice restaurant, have lunch.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, we're walking around Salt Lake City, and he's teaching me about the history of that place.
There you go. Hey, Randy, I'm gonna move along. I'm gonna get to some other calls. Phone lines are open, 855-950-3835, or hit that call now button on your app. We're gonna head off to California this time. Brian, welcome to the program.
Hi, Kevin. How are you doing today?
Good. What's on your mind?
Hey, I just wanted to kind of give a chipper's aspect to this whole thing with the brokers.
Oh, I'd love that.
So we ship quite a bit of product out, and yes, we've tried using our own trucks at times, and the costs are just astronomical. And with a broker, I'm able to call that guy. I'll give him my budget, and he's able to match me up with a carrier that meets my needs. It's not the broker taking money out of it. I'm the one setting the rate. I don't tell him and say, hey, what's this rate? I give him what I'm willing to pay.
Right.
And so I hear all these guys just complaining, and it's like, then move on to a different broker. That's what I do. If the guy isn't giving me what I want, I call somebody else.
And wouldn't that be true, since you run a company, you understand all this? This is just one aspect of your business, but isn't this same philosophy, doesn't it hold true in every other area of your business? You need vendors, and
Exactly.
If business were so easy that all you had to do was pick up the phone and call a vendor and you were done, everybody would be in business. That would be way too easy. It's never like that. You call a vendor, you start to understand, is this vendor going to fit my needs or not? Then at some point, you got to give somebody a shot. And many times, I'm sure you've experienced this, you do all of the due diligence you can possibly do. This looks like this should be a great company to partner with or pay for a service. And within weeks of starting, they turn out to be a total dud, and you realize it's just not going to work, and you got to start all over again.
Exactly, and that's just part of doing things. I do it with even from cap manufacturers down to bottles. I mean, I'm constantly, that's why I like you, I partner with a ton of small companies. And it's because when something goes wrong, I can call the president of the company and tell him, hey, you sent me X and I wanted Y. How are you going to get it? How are we going to solve this problem? But my other thing is, I have a ton of carriers that come to my door that are delivering products, and they're owner operators, 90% of them. But how many of them actually ever take the time to get out of the truck and come in and see me and ask me to sell it? Hey, how can I get some more of your freight?
That's right.
None. Absolutely none.
Yes. I talk about it all the time. It is so easy as a small carrier to set yourself apart in this industry. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
The bar is set so low.
I've gone back to my broker and I said, hey, and I've told them there's been a couple of guys that have shown up at my door that have been so professional and done everything right when they get to our door. I'll go back and I'll tell them, hey, if that guy needs a load, I have this available.
There you go.
So I'm paying attention to because there's guys that show up at my door, I throw them out. I won't even accept their load when they show up at my door with flip flops and in jogging pants. They don't even I don't even load them.
Good.
They sit and they wait until they can put a pair of shoes on and walk into my warehouse.
There are so many examples of this concept, and I'm thinking of, in my own life. I've talked about our business and how that works and why, even though we're a middleman and some people, it's one more hand in the pot. Well, that doesn't have to be a bad thing, and it doesn't have to increase cost. Here's another example. one of our plans, and I've been talking about it for a long time, is over the last decade, we've been shifting retirement money out of the stock market into local real estate. And I've talked about why I was doing it. There was a lot of reasons. But our model was I was going to become as much of an expert on the local real estate as I could be, but I use a buyer's agent. I don't need to use a buyer's agent. I could just look at all the listings that are out there myself. And when I see a property I like, I could just call them and schedule with the listing agent. And if I did that, the listing agent would get the commission from their listing. But instead, I hire a buyer's agent. Now, that doesn't cost me any money. It doesn't cost the home seller any money. It just means that the listing agent is only going to get half of the commission. No, it doesn't cost anybody any more money. So I get the service of somebody who lives that market every single day, and it doesn't cost me anything. Middlemen make for efficient markets.
Exactly. I move tons of product by just picking up the phone. I can call a food broker. If I got something that I'm long on, I can call that guy up. I can move, and I make a smaller margin.
Right.
But I moved that product and I made the money back. I didn't lose anything on it.
And you are able to focus on what you do best, which is not shipping products.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. And going to Tony, it's like, okay, if they're telling you 13 people, 13 people if you have to have they don't want 13 loads a week. That means they're guys. Get them together. Go work together and get those loads. They'll work with you.
There are lots of ways that this can be handled. I have worked with brokerages in the past where I actually approached them to just tweak the relationship a little bit, and I hired them as my agent. I'll make them my sales agent. You go get me freight, and here's the percentage we'll agree to. It's a slight tweak on the way the relationship works, but it can change a lot. They now know that I want to commit my time and my equipment to them as much as possible. The more freight you find me at this margin, we've already pre-negotiated the rate, their margin. The more freight you can find me, the more I will move for you. That's just a shift in the relationship that can change the dynamic.
Exactly. Things are constantly evolving and changing, and you have to be able to adapt. If you can't adapt, then you're going to die.
This is why I've always said when I'm helping somebody get started as a carrier, I really prefer people with general business backgrounds that don't know a lot about trucking. They're so much easier to work with, and they understand the core business concepts. In this industry, it's very common for people to become owner-operators that don't really want to be in business. They just love owning trucks. I get that. My father spent his whole life doing that, and he struggled because of it. It's why I do what I do today, because there was a time when you could get away with that easier than you can today. The phrase used to be, well, if you're going to be an owner-operator, that's a lifestyle, not a business. I never totally agreed with that statement, but I understood it. It becomes less and less true every year. There's not much of that trucking lifestyle left. This really has become a business, and your goal should be to put as much profit to the bottom line as you can.
Exactly. If you have to always be willing to look at that other opportunities that's out there, not so narrow-minded and focused on just one broker, one shipper or whatever. You have to constantly, you have to be like a vacuum and taking all that in and putting it where you want it to go.
And you really just summed up every aspect of a small business for sure. They're a lot of work, and it never ends. You can't remain static. You can't say, well, I got my business to this size, we'll just stay here. I've tried that. I don't like big business. I love the challenge of starting small business. And at some point, I've sold 3 businesses over my career. Not because they were failing, because they were growing and I didn't like them anymore. I really love small business, but I have found that it's really difficult to stay in one place.
Yeah, and you have to be willing to. You have to be willing to take that business to wherever it'll work. And if it's like I'm looking at every aspect that I can to get out of California.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And remain in the same business model that I am.
I'll bet. Yeah, but, that's a tough one.
You know, you have to constantly be. It's a machine, and you're constantly feeding it. You have to constantly be looking for where you're gonna feed it from next. You know, it's not. Well, it's not one diet, as you know.
Yeah. And you heard me say this many times, and I said it with Tony. I'll say it with a lot of people. When somebody says, "But it's hard," good. That is the point. Business is hard, and if it weren't hard, anybody that wanted to stand out would have to go find something that was hard. So every time I hear somebody say, "But that's hard," good. That's where the opportunity is.
Because my most stressful days are my easy days.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because that's the day I am the most worried about, hey, what's going on with my business?
Yeah, that's a true entrepreneur. The better things are going, the more anxious you get.
Yeah, because it's too slow. I mean,
right.
Kevin, I appreciate your time, and I want to have another conversation with you again soon.
Absolutely.
Because, I've got you diet-wise. In the last year, I've taken off like 40 pounds. And
congratulations.
Just on carnivore. And
good stuff.
Awesome. And I've got some further questions for you, but that's for another day. But I just want you to know I appreciate your time, and you've taught me so much in the last couple of years about business on top of what I already knew. That I just appreciate you.
Well, you are welcome, and clearly you've learned a lot on your own, and I appreciate you saying I was a part of that. We will talk to you again soon. All right, it looks like I'm going to wrap this up. I've got a lot I could get on with today. We have a lot going on. CMC Live is tomorrow, our premier online event. We did a preview last week. This is the real thing. So still time to get signed up for the CMC. If you have any questions, you could always call Tribe Care. They'll answer all their questions. They'll get you signed up in time for tomorrow's premier webinar. There will be a small introduction, kind of get some housekeeping out of the way, make sure everybody knows how the program's going to work, where all the material's going to be. All the sessions are recorded. So we'll get everybody comfortable with the system and how things work. But then we will get right down to the nitty-gritty of learning how to become a very successful small carrier. It's the whole point of the program. So we will see you then. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.